Have you ever been on a road trip and heard a great story? We all love a great story, and we serve a great God. God's people have incredible stories to tell. It's time to share those stories with you. Come on, join me as we hit the road. All right,
So
well,
important.
we're talking too much good stuff already, so let's get started with this.
Sounds good. Sounds
All
good.
right. Hey, thank you for joining us on this episode of Hitting the Road. And today's road trip isn't going to take us too far. In fact, I'm still in St. Louis, and our guest is just down the street from us in another little community. And I want to welcome, as we get together to share some of the good news that's going on with God's kingdom right now, Rehema Kavugha. And Rehema is with Lutheran Church Extension Fund, LCEF. And Rehema, you and I have gotten to know each other over this past year or so when you've now landed into St. Louis, and you're now a member of my home congregation, our home congregation. And we haven't had a chance to really get together too much because of the pandemic. Although I'm the new member, one of the new member elders, and you were one of the new members who helped some of the other new members this last class. So much great stuff going on. And I want to just spend some time getting to know you a little bit better today, having everybody get to know you and hearing some of the things you're doing at LCEF. So let me just give a quick introduction. Again, Rehema Kavugha. And Rehema is public relations manager at LCEF. But before that, she was heavily involved with Concordia, Nebraska as director of student development. And you're also a grad of Concordia. And I want to talk about your Concordia experience a little bit.
Awesome.
But she also has this hidden talent of music. And she was a music teacher at Emmanuel Evangelical Lutheran Church and School in Alexandria, Virginia. And before that, at Salem Lutheran Church and School in Gretna, Louisiana. So Rehema has traveled. She's done some road trips during her time.
I have.
So Rehema, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me, Ken. This is a great opportunity and always a pleasure to get to talk to you. So, yeah.
This will be fun. And let me just start by saying, one of the roles you have at Lutheran Church Extension Fund is developing relationships with the Synod and other churches and things like that. How have you been able to build some new relationships this past year?
Yeah, it's certainly been a challenge. I started at LCEF in 2019, so I was able to get about 8 months or so of actual face-to-face contact before the pandemic hit. But it's been really interesting in the year 2020 and now here into 2021 to try and continue to build those relationships. I think a lot of it has come with just listening and reaching out. So I spend a lot of time just sending emails to people, asking how they're doing, asking of ways that I can support them, brainstorming ways that I can support them, because especially here at LCEF, we've really worked hard to listen to our churches and our schools and our RSOs to understand what's going on and to be able to provide needs even outside of financial that we can help support. And so that has been a lot of really unique opportunities. I think one of the most fun things that I've done has been virtual bingo nights. So I've been hosting a series of virtual bingo nights. We've done this primarily with the Concordias, the university system, and then with both of the seminaries as well. I actually just did one for Mardi Gras. So we had a Mardi Gras themed one with the Fort Wayne Seminary, and that was a lot of fun too. And, during that time together, just asking, how are you doing? And checking in on one another and helping, especially our students, again, churches, pastors, lay leaders, and church workers know that we're thinking and praying about you often, and understand all of the burdens that you're going through. So yeah, it's been a lot of just reaching out, listening, and trying to offer and be in a creative space with people, which I love doing. So I've gotten to do a lot of that lately too.
Oh, that's great. And
Yeah.
you bring up the technology. I mean, this is one of the great things that have happened. One of the blessings that has truly happened for the court from this whole year, 2020, and now into this year, just being able to see so many Lutherans out there on webinars, in church services. We were talking a little bit earlier. Did we ever imagine we'd see this many churches, this many Lutheran churches, showing their services on Sunday mornings?
Yeah, I actually, at one point I said, man, with online, I think I've gone to church more times than usual. It was kind of fun to be able to wake up and watch my church here in De Pere, and then to also worship with my parents as they sat on their couch and watched from Houston, Texas. And then I'd watch my former congregations that I've served at too. So it was kind of fun to be able to do that and to get to connect. As a church worker, I don't get to always see my church worker friends too. We all have the same schedule. And so to see them in action in their ministries, especially as pastors, was a joy. So.
Well, and you just brought up your parents in Houston, and as we're filming this right now, there's the cold weather snap and the ice and everything like that. How are your parents doing?
Thank you for asking. Yeah, they're doing well. It has been a rough week for them. So they lost power on Monday and didn't get it for 4 days. So yesterday was their first day back and with power. And my mom was very excited to just get some heat for sure. But so far, so good. But there's been so many people who've been devastated. And so just continuing to pray. And I know there'll be a lot of relief work that's happening and will continue to happen in the next upcoming weeks too. And, Texas is a resilient state that I will say that they have endured a lot and are always standing behind one another. And so that happens inside the church and outside of the church. So I know they'll be stronger than ever through this.
Well, that's good to hear. We're also praying for them as well. Now, you talk about how the church comes together. Tell me some of the things that LCEF does. I mean, you guys serve the church in so many different ways. What are some of your favorite ways that LCEF gets involved?
Yeah, so one of the primary things that LCEF works through is through our investors. And I think it's such a unique relationship that happens because when you decide as an individual, as a congregation, as a school, as a recognized service organization, when you decide to make the decision to invest, yes, you're earning interest on your loans, but also knowing that your investment actually goes back maybe to you as an individual through our roster church worker mortgage loans or through other loans that go back to it. So it's really neat compared to going out to your local bank or anything like that, where your money is just sitting there earning interest. This is earning interest and doing more. And so I think that's really a really unique experience. And one of the things that attracted me to, well, I've always known about LCEF, but to also work for an organization like LCEF. And then, like I said, that feeds into the loans, the various loans that we do. And I think it's really unique that we get to do it unlike anyone else because we understand what it means to be a Lutheran organization or an entity of any kind. And so we get to do specialized and unique loans for each of our customers. And then I really love our ministry solutions arm of LCEF, which goes out and works with churches and RSOs in particular to help them just decipher what God has in store for their organization. That could be through building projects, that could be through updates, capital campaigns, whatever that looks like. And so it starts with taking the time to listen to God and his discernment, and they lead you through that as a whole congregation so that when you step out in faith, you do it together. And those stories are just so unique to hear across the country, and churches who've been able to accomplish much more than they would have even imagined before they started that experience in that journey with us.
Now, I don't want to put you on the spot. Maybe one of the things we want to talk about, we want to share some of these great stories. Do you have a story? Like I said, don't put you on the spot, but do you have anything in mind?
Yeah, so you had told me to think of some stories, and I feel like there's so many of them. And so I always encourage people to just like check out our Interest Time, our magazine, because we highlight so many of those and put those online too. I think one of my favorite stories is actually the generational impact that LCEF has had. So we've been around for over 40 years now, but the concept of an extension fund has been around for quite some time. And it's really neat. Recently, one of my colleagues was out to visit an investor who has now invested not only personally, but they did for their children, their grandchildren, and now their great grandchildren, and has opened over 20 different accounts between her grandchildren and her great grandchildren as young investors, and to see them continue to grow and mature as Christians, and to know the impact that she's making. And so it's always so great to go out and hear that. Or, you know, I'll be wearing something LCF, or somebody will come up to me and just say, thank you so much. You know, your organization helped our church build a building. You know, we've had some great stories, and I will just put this plug in. This is our latest Interest Time. And in there, it talks about a story of a church down in California, or excuse me, down in Florida, who was able to build something and still end up debt-free through that process. And so, yeah, there's too many stories. Too many stories, but I just love being able to hear it. And I always tell my organization, I love it because you guys do such amazing work, and I get to go out and people come up to me and just get to tell me all of the wonderful things. And so I try to tell them that it's not just me. It's definitely not just me, but it is a large group of us that work together, and to share that with all those people who put in their time and talents and treasures towards the work of the kingdom. So.
But yeah, and it is really a blessing to be able to work to support the church out there. Mm-hmm. I always joke with people. I said, you know, CPH is not just a building or an entity. I mean, we're made up of pastors, pastors' wives, pastors' kids, school teachers, musicians, elders, VBS volunteers, on and on and on and on. And I know LCEF is the same way. Mm-hmm. And I also love what you said too, this idea of generational sharing. I know from a financial standpoint, we have that. What we do here with our books and resources, you know, passing down those arch books from kids. I love, you know, when my daughter was little, pulling out my old arch books and sharing those with her, getting her new arch books, and, you know, all the different things that we all can pass along, and just how important that is. What has been some of the things, now you've been at LCS for almost a couple of years now. Mm-hmm. What have been some of the things that have surprised you?
Oh, wow. Surprises. I think truly understanding everything that LCF does has been a surprise. So again, my congregation growing up, you know, I knew about LCF. I know even, you know, the school building that I attended through all of my elementary was used through LCF in order to be built and everything like that. But it wasn't really till I started there that I just learned of how deep the wealth of resources that are there, and been able to help continue to deepen that wealth of resources. So just the work, especially with recognized service organizations that are done, our ministry solutions and the work that they do, especially that process from start to finish, and how God-filled it is. It's not just about the dollars and cents to help build, but to really truly understand where God is calling your ministry to serve the community around you. And so that's been great. And as I know you've experienced this too, Ken, as you get to know the people that you work with, or know more about the organization, you know the heart of those people. And I'm really blessed to work with some amazing people, not only here in our national office in St. Louis, but all of our district vice presidents too, who are out there daily interacting with churches and schools in their districts to know that, and you know, getting to know the heart of those people has truly been a joy and like I said, I get the fun side to go out and then just talk about it. But to do that, I think one of my favorite departments is our call center. You know, one of the things, especially as we talk about technology and moving forward, one of the things I love about LCEF is the voice. We always have voices, and we have some amazing ladies who I get to work with in the call center, and every once in a while they get to come out on things with me, and it's so fun to hear someone recognize their voice, you know, because they've talked to them so much about helping them through various things. And so those ladies do an amazing job. And I know many people just enjoy calling to talk to them, and how they get to know our customers. And that's great.
And I think that's really one of the things that your organization, my organization, other organizations in the Lutheran Church, we are here to help the churches.
Yeah.
I mean, that's why we get up every morning, is to see how can we move forward to help a church? How can we get the gospel out there? How can we continue to grow God's kingdom? And that is the blessing. You have just a really interesting background, though, with your music, getting involved now in teaching and in the LCEF and different things like this. Your background, you know, where all the places you traveled. That's what I was going to talk about. Was the fact that how great it is when you go to a Lutheran church, no matter where it is, you just feel at home.
Yeah.
You know, even if it's a different type of congregation than yours or whatever, you just feel at home. And I found that in my travels.
Yeah, it's been unique. I mean, God has blessed me in many ways, and you know, I never thought I would be in all of the places. I mean, I've always had a travel bug in me from when I was a little girl. My family's originally from Tanzania in East Africa, and so I'm first generation born here in the United States, and so right away I had to be able to travel just to see family. And what would that look like as an adult? I didn't know, but I knew travel would be a part of my life. And I think God answered that by saying, let's put you in several places, have several calls, and take you all over the United States for the most part. I think I've avoided the West Coast, but who knows what God has in store for me there. But it's been so unique here through my life journey and places to just go in and see that community that you talked about. And I think so much of that, I will say, is just rooted in who we are as Lutherans. I think there's so much that can be said to the way we worship, in that consistency, that I know that I can walk in anywhere and I will get the benediction, I will get confession and absolution, I will get, the offering, I will receive the, sacraments and get my blessing. And I've been fortunate enough not only to see it within the United States, but been able to travel outside of the world. And, I often get asked, like, okay, so how did you end up being Lutheran? And I'm a generational Lutheran. I'm a generational teacher as well. The Lutheran Church in Africa is larger than that here in the United States. And so our whole family is Lutheran. And 2 summers ago, so the summer of 2019, I was blessed to go back and went to my great grandmother's church walked in, and it was Divine Service Setting 3 in a different language. But I was able to participate wholeheartedly as I would in my own congregation here in the United States. And so, that sense of community.
Share how that made you feel. What did I can't even imagine that. What was that like?
I mean, it's really cool. I mean, it's always so much fun. Part of the reason why I became a music teacher also is my love for music and using that to share the gospel. And my family's the same way. singing is what we do, whether it is a wedding or a funeral. Music is just such an integral part of the African culture. It tells a story through our singing. And so our family has embraced that wholeheartedly. We know who the altos and the tenors and the basses and the sopranos are whenever we're together. And it's a lot of fun. And so to be able to worship together is just so powerful. And for me, it's dual. It's powerful that I get to worship with my family because I can speak the language and understand. But for them, it's also that return too. You know, I very, very fortunate that I've been able to go back and visit, and that I can speak the language fluently so that I can be an active participant when I'm there. And so my family, I think, is proud of me for being able to do that. And so they love those moments. And it's always kind of fun because I will walk in and my parents and stuff, and they know you're a visitor. And so the little kids, you know, they'll hear, oh, she's from America, you know, and so they're just kind of looking at you like, oh, and then, you know, when I start speaking Swahili, they're like, wow, you know, I didn't know you could do that, you know. And so just this, it's so much fun. I love it.
Oh, that is great. And that's a wonderful story. And that's one of the things I want to do as I talk to people and as I've traveled around, just share that there's so much commonality that we have. You know, we all have different churches, and if that's the only church you've ever been to, that's all that you know. But realizing that when you're on vacation, when you're in a different part of the country or whatever, you can find that Lutheran church and still feel at home. I just a quick aside, I was in Michigan a couple of years ago now, and I was visiting one of the circuit visitors, and it was a Sunday, so I went to his church service, and they were doing a chili cook-off, and everybody was just so welcoming, and this chili cook-off was great, and I just sat there, and it's like, oh, I know that person from my church. I know that person from my church. You can just find families and people and those generational people.
To say there's like 7 degrees of separation, you know, within the LCMS. And then when you get to those larger conferences, I feel like it comes down to about 3 or 4. You know, once I know where you're from, I could usually name 1 or 2 people, and you'll know probably 1 or 2 of those people, and we find our mutual connection. So that's always just a ton of fun. Yeah, it's, you know, in college, I was fortunate through the Concordia Nebraska's a cappella choir to travel to Germany. It was really fun to get to sing there and to understand. And even though we didn't all totally understand what worship was, like I said, that the structure that happens within our worship services is something that we share all over the world. And that was just a ton of fun. And music especially, it is an international, it's a universal language. And so to be able to proclaim the gospel then through music, whether it was in German or in English or various languages, was really neat. And to be able to interact with people afterwards too was just a ton of fun. Yeah.
I got to share have you seen the Lutheran Hymn Companion, the 2-volume set?
Yes, it's on my purchase list. I need to get it. So
it is unbelievable.
Yeah.
Unbelievable resource. Now you're also, people can tell you're very shy, but you get involved in things. Now you were involved in National Youth Gathering last time, right?
Yes.
Tell me a little bit about that.
That was a ton of fun. So I've been involved in the last now 3 gatherings since San Antonio of 2016. And so this last gathering in Minneapolis, I served on as a morning sessions leader. So I, along with Pastor Gabe Casper, I'll give him a shout out from Michigan, we teamed together to lead Bible studies in the morning with a room of about 500 students. And we did that twice, so got to connect with that. And it was just so much fun. You know, digging into God's word, challenging one another, you know, even We know that God's word speaks to us every day in many and various ways. And so even going through that process was just a ton of fun to be in a space collectively with other strong Christians to talk about Psalm 46, and then to connect with children and high schoolers, who are young adults, I should say, and to dig into Psalm 46 was a ton of fun. And it's always kind of fun to go out, and I still run into students or youth that I worked with or were in that space and are like, I remember you telling me this. And that's just great. I love it. So yeah, looking forward to 2022. I'm helping to serve with that as well. So we're starting those planning meetings as we look ahead to Houston. So we're going back to my neck of the woods, and I'm really excited for that opportunity.
All right. Well, you're going to have to tell us all the good places to eat.
Yes. You can't go wrong about anywhere. So Texas is good.
Now, you mentioned, young adults and such, and you've been very involved over your time with Concordia University, Nebraska. How is dealing with young adults and those just getting out of college, what has that meant for you?
So I've worked with children my whole life. Like I said, I'm a generational. My mother is still a teacher at my Lutheran grade school, been there for over 30 years. My grandmother was a teacher as well. And then I started off with being at the elementary level, so teaching preschool through 8th grade, before making that transition to college. And my college students would often ask, do you miss little kids? And I said, you guys sometimes act like kindergartners, just taller, and so it never goes away, the heart of a kid, no matter how big you get. But what I really found and loved about working with college age students, and then kind of right outside of college is just the opportunity to wrestle with the world. There's so much that you learn. And then what does that mean to live it out? Whether it's in your faith life, whether it's in your academic life, the choices that you make moving forward is so big. And obviously at Concordia, Nebraska, it was just a great opportunity to do it all from the foundation of Christ and to be able to look at the world through those eyes and what that means, but recognize the challenges that not everyone looks at the world through that, and continue to wrestle with that. And I loved the students I got to work with for the last 6 years, and there are still many of them that I still talk to. I always tried to position myself, if you want to talk about something, you can come here with no reservations at all. And it's great to get those phone calls sometimes in the middle of the night of, hey, here's what's going on, and I don't know what to do. And, to recognize too, like, I'm in that same boat, and I still have somebody that I call in the middle of the night when I'm struggling or wrestling with that too. So it's such a unique time in a young person's life. And so for me, it's the joy of being able to impact that in whatever way that looks like was a ton of fun.
What was it like to go back to your alma mater then too?
Oh, it was so cool. Go Bulldogs through and through. I'm a big Bulldog fan. Always have, always will be. And, it was so much fun. It was weird. There were definitely some times where it was weird, where now some of my professors were my colleagues, but also just so inspiring, because many of them were like, Rehema, we are not surprised that you're here. We were just waiting for you, and that was a ton of fun. And Nebraska has just been in a great place as it continues to grow and flourish. And so to be a part of that and those conversations and the impact it can have was a lot of fun. And the students indulged me with listening to stories of the things that I used to do or my friends used to do. And so that was a lot of fun.
Rehema, you kind of just said something there too, though, about your professors became your coworkers and your peers. Think about mentoring. Well, how important is mentoring? You've been involved with youth for so many years. And within a church environment, why is mentoring so important? And why is generational mentoring so important?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's so important. We know that statistics show us that with the upcoming generations, it's so important to this sense of validation. And we know that this has been set up through the way social media works. You can see it on TV, and whether we like it or not, there is this innate sense of validation that we all need. And so, what I think about is the old saying, it takes a village to raise a child. And I think about everybody that has been in my life, how they all poured into me. As a teenager, you don't listen to your parents, right? They don't really know what's right for you. You go through that stage. And so, I mean, my mom told me I should be a teacher, and that was all good and well. But my teachers told me I should be a teacher. My pastor told me I should be a teacher. My music teacher told me I should be a teacher. And all of these people that additionally poured into my life really, I think, more than even what my parents could have done, really helped support me in that way. And so I think that old saying that it takes a village to raise a child is still so true. And so I always try within my church to try and get to know young people, to have that conversation, to try and model that you can do whatever you want to do, and encourage people to not be afraid to say that to someone else. Sometimes we so often wait because we think someone else is going to. So, if it's a high schooler, well, their teacher will tell them they'd be a good teacher, or the youth director will tell them they'll be a good teacher, or whatever their job would be. But anyone in the pew can encourage one another as we build up the church, not just to be a church worker, but also to be a lay worker, which serves the kingdom equally as much.
But I think there's so much to that, the idea of having your kids in a Christian environment, whether it's a Christian Lutheran school, whether it's surrounded in church by other Christians, and having that place to go to. I love what you said, to wrestle with the world.
Yeah.
And that ability to have resources like CPH provides, to have the financial background and the support that LCEF provides, some of the other resources some of our other Lutheran entities provide as well. So it's great to have that safe harbor, that place you can go.
Yeah, I think it is. It's so, and that's why, I mean, I love Lutheran education. I was fortunate to have it and go through it. I went to a private high school, but I still ended up back at a Concordia to be in that community, and just realizing the importance of community and the blend of that community and the world too. What I love is the friends that I have that I've gotten to know outside of work or church, which are both church-based in this case, still know and understand, love and respect my priorities of my church and what I do there. And I've had friends that have joined me up through the years, and just been able, that I know that I'm ministering to them in various ways too, through that, and being able to balance those two, I think has been great and beneficial for myself as well.
That's great.
Well,
yeah. So what's next on the horizon for Rehema? What are you thinking of? What are you looking forward to in 2021?
Yeah, I mean, so I'm looking forward to just being with people again.
Yes.
I know everyone's been saying it. I'm an extrovert, and right now I'm in my house alone with my dog, and so that has certainly presented its challenges, which have been good. I have to admit they've been good through this last year. So I look forward to being in community with one another, and even to be able to connect in multiple ways. So, even our church is fortunate enough that we are able to be face to face, but seeing and hearing someone is only engaging two of the senses. And so I can't wait to engage those other senses, especially of touch, and to be able to give a hug to people. So that's very exciting. so that's me on my personal side. LCEF, we are just really excited about what God has in store for us this year, which is a lot of different opportunities. So many things were put on pause for churches and congregations as and schools and all of those, as things were paused and turned, to different priorities, as they should have been. And now we're really seeing a shift here in 2021 as entities realize we need to keep going. The gospel has not died, and it still needs to be spread. And so LCF has just been so excited, and we're continuing to encourage churches to keep on with your mission. And how can we help you do that? So if you've paused a project because of COVID-19, let's take a look at that and see where we can do. If as you have gone through the pandemic and maybe it has shown some gaps or some holes, or a particular community that could be engaged that had not been engaged, invite us into that conversation so that we can help you along that way. Obviously, the need for technology has grown, and so we've reminded people that we have smart loans that are specifically for technology uses, especially in schools, who've probably gone through the most drastic change over the last year. And so, we continue to look at ways to engage the other people outside of our walls and things like that. So just so fun. For me personally, one of that falls along the work line, one of the projects that I've taken on through COVID and gonna kind of keep it as my project has been our webinars. I know we were chatting about this a little before this recording, but LCF offered several webinars, has been offering several webinars really as a resource to COVID. We made many of them specifically for education, because as we reached out to the church, that's who needed the most help, especially our early childhood centers, many who stayed open through the pandemic to serve their communities, and especially first responder families. And so we've continued to evolve those to just help the church. So we just did a couple about a month ago regarding technology in the church, and then overall wellness through Grace Place Wellness. And we're looking forward to those. We'll be doing a series of 4 of them coming up this summer. So there'll be an announcement about that later this spring. And so really looking forward to, again, ways that we can support the church, because we know that everything is interconnected. So in order to be thinking about finances, you need to be in a great place mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually. And so whatever that means, and we can support that, that's good. And we're excited to be able to do that.
Well, let me put the plug in. If there's anything we can do to help with that as well. We ought to have this whole campaign, Rehema, of churches building library editions.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
It would be awesome. Yeah, you're talking about too with the pandemic. I always think about the 1918 pandemic and the need, after that occurred, it was called the Roaring 20s for a reason. People got together. And I think that once all this is over, there's just going to be this pent up desire to gather back together as a church community.
Yeah, and I think it's a great opportunity for our church, as we've seen. We've heard, I know you have heard this too, and witnessed it. We've seen the rise that has been a blessing for so many of our Lutheran schools who managed to reopen at the beginning of this school year, and how that's exploded exponentially in their communities, and what an amazing impact that's making from the mouth of babes, as it says in the Bible, and hear that. And so I think the church has a great opportunity to step out in faith, knowing that God is using all things for his good in a pandemic, even in a pandemic, which is can be hard to think about, but really God is using us for his good in the midst of this crisis. And so, yeah, it's exciting to see where the church will end up and continue to grow through this time. So.
Well, we can't say enough good things about Lutheran education. I've had the opportunity to talk to different principals and those involved with Lutheran schools around, and many of them are seeing increases in attendance. And that then leads to baptisms and families coming into the church and all the blessings that come from new members and new Christians as well.
Yeah, that's just so fun.
That is fun.
That's exciting.
All right. Well, real quick, how can people keep in contact with you and support your work or hear more about your work?
Yeah, so I would encourage you to always visit us at lcef.org. You can find out more information, give us a call at our 1-800 number. You can always look me up. There's not too many Rehema Kavughas out there, whether it's through social media or reach out. You can also call the 1-800 number and just ask to speak to me as well. But love the opportunity to connect you with whoever I can to help your individual needs or your congregation or school needs at the time. So, yeah.
Well, Rehema, I could sit here and talk to you all day because you and I have very similar personalities.
Yes.
So this is just way too much fun. And I really appreciate you jumping on and just sharing some of the great stuff that's going on out there in the church and some of your background as well.
Thank you so much. Appreciate the opportunity. It's always great to talk to you and great opportunity to share. And thanks to CPH for just thinking of different ways to branch out and share the good news of our Christ and our Lord and what's going on in the church. Because like you said at the beginning, in the midst of all of this, it's so easy to focus on the negative, and yet there is always light. Jesus is the light of the world. And so to bring the light and let it shine is just so important for all of us. So I appreciate this opportunity to be reminded of those good things as well.
Well, I always am moved by one of our good friends and author, Deb Burma, who wrote the book on joy. So every time Deb would be interviewed by Elizabeth Pittman during the pandemic, she brought so much joy to people. So that's kind of what we want to do with these. So, but before you go,
okay,
lightning round.
Whew, all right.
Favorite food?
Steak.
All right. Last book read?
Captivating. Yes,
excellent.
Captivating by John and Stacy Eldridge. It's great for young women, especially as they think about their self-worth.
Okay. Bingeable television.
I feel like I have to say The Office because I jumped on that train and I had never watched it before the pandemic. So I jumped on that train.
I'm right there with you.
Okay.
Favorite pastime? What does Rehema like to do?
Okay, my fun one, no, they're both fun. I will say yesterday was National Wine Drinking Day, and most of my friends know that that's my second holiday next to my birthday. So I do love to enjoy in those beverages. But other than that, I love to read is my biggest, and I'm a scrapbooker.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Excellent.
Yeah.
And then last one, favorite Christmas memory?
I will have to say it is this past Christmas, simply because it was the first time I got to see my family in the year 2020. So it just made it that good. And because we couldn't see anybody else, we spent a lot of quality time together. So that's going to trump my usual one, which is my first Christmas in Africa. So I got to spend I was 4 years old. It was in Africa, and that was just a memorable moment.
Share real quick, just share a memory of that. What do you remember of that?
So what I remember of that is, again, that correlation of going to midnight service. And I particularly remember standing next to my grandmother in church, singing Silent Night. I wasn't allowed to hold the candle, but I was like trying to like touch all the drippings. I remember that while we're singing Silent Nights in Swahili, it was just this kind of worlds colliding, especially for a 4-year-old girl. I knew what it was to sing it in English, and it was just such a great experience.
Yeah. Well, that is fantastic, and we will end it there. Rehema, thank you so much for joining me today, and thanks everybody for watching.
Yes.